And tonight, folks, might be the very last game of the 23-24 season as Game 4 in Dallas, Boston in the NBA Finals with the Dallas Mavericks. The season might come to an end. While that affects us, it only affects us because, as Derek said yesterday, that things can get a little heated out there with the free agent situation going on, as teams will be able to talk to their players after the season is officially ended. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast on a Friday alongside Derek Bodner. Kyle Neubeck makes his return.
Yeah,
I'm Devon Givens.
Avoided the sunburn yesterday.
Is producing, and all of you back with us as always. Kyle is not sunburned. It's a Friday. It's going to be a nice weekend, we hope, weather-wise. And I saw, Derek, did you see already next week? It's going to be in the 90s
my God, yes.
every day.
Upper 90s, like
every
97,
day.
98.
Oh, just kill me now.
Every day. So we'll prepare for that, and maybe the basketball season will be over, and we'll have a lot more to talk about as we begin our conversations next week. But first, we do have to discuss, as much as we've talked about even on Thursday's show, discussing Jrue Holiday and the fit that would have been here potentially, maybe if he would have come back to the Philadelphia 76ers after New Orleans, before he got to Milwaukee, even after being let go by Milwaukee, sent to Portland to trade, all of that took place to wind up in Boston playing for another title. We've discussed so many names, so many players, so many different types of players that could maybe fit, maybe not fit between Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey as that third star, as a complementary player for this team. Today, we wanted to talk about, what does that player really look like? What skill set, what attributes that player has to possess in order to make it work as that other player next to Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. And if that player does exist, if we're talking about the perfect player, if we're going 2K and we're putting that player together,
Creative player.
What does that creative player look like for the Philadelphia 76ers?
Well, there was naturally only one name that came to mind when we brought up this topic: Nick Stauskas. Because he's big like Clay and shoots like Steph.
Exactly.
That was like maybe the last name on earth I was expecting to
I
come
only
there.
brought up the name
Exactly.
to reference Vivek. Like he said, when they if you missed it, when they drafted him, they did a special on it, and he said, for me, Stauskas, big like Clay, shoot like Steph. But theoretically, if you were looking for a pairing next to Embiid like Max, you'd want someone who is big like Clay and shoots like Steph, but who is actually like that, not just somebody who was misidentified as that. And I think that's where it starts. It has to be a high-volume shooter, like a very high-volume shooter, who's comfortable off the catch, comfortable off the move, and has the size to defend next to Tyrese Maxey. I think that's sort of like the starting point. Now, there's obviously going to be a whole bunch of other skill sets that you would like to have along with that, but that is where I would start.
Sauce Castillo, you're unbelievable. First I come back and Eugene Ross has a new profile picture in the chat, which is throwing me off. Then Derek has hit me over the head with Nick Stauskas jokes to open the show. So
Nick Stauskas, who by the way is around in the Wells Fargo Center a lot lately.
Yeah, he's been involved with something with Sixers.com or with the team in general. So I don't know if we'll see him popping up more and more. Well, I guess we'll find out. So I will go in a different direction in terms of the caliber of player that I'm going to refer to. If you start with a base level of, not quite James Harden, right? James Harden would be a high level third person to put in there. But a guy basically his size, big shooting guard type, who can play make, who can knock down threes, but be a much more willing catch and shoot player than James Harden has been throughout his career. And someone who's willing to defend a hell of a lot more than James Harden is. Essentially, you want, if Paul George was a better off the dribble creator and playmaker, it would be kind of close to Paul George.
We're talking about 27-year-old Paul George.
Yeah, he fits he checks a lot of the boxes. He, at his peak, was a guy who could defend basically anybody. I'd say 2 through 4. I don't think he was great against ones, although he's capable of it. And I wouldn't want him defending true bigs. But I do think he could defend basically any wing in the league, any 2 guard and up to basically power forward size players, and do it well. And on top of that, he was a smart, timely, off-ball defender, guy who could kill you in the passing lanes, get out, create turnovers, get you out in transition, but do that without having to gamble too much, which is a big deal, right? Like a lot of the guys that we think of as, oh, that guy creates a lot of steals, they're selling out and they're exposed to back cuts and things in the other direction. So the defensive versatility there, the ability to be a high volume catch and shoot player is really important. I think it's most important next to Joel Embiid, but certainly like, I think you can see, maybe not with Tyrese specifically, but if you looked at Buddy Hield and his success in Indiana playing off of Halliburton, I would like to see a guy who can be in a partnership with Tyrese as a screener, so is big enough to free Tyrese on the perimeter, but then is like a good enough, credible enough threat that if somebody sells out on Maxey, that's just a quick after the ghost screen like over the JJ second Redick guy. Yes, plays, that I think is a big thing that I value. And then I know we've been hammering this quite a bit recently. Playmaking is just so critical to what they need from the rest of the roster because Joel is not the highest level playmaker in the middle of the floor, although he has gotten better. Tyrese has gotten better, but he's not who anybody views as like a traditional point guard in terms of the playmaking responsibilities. Still waiting for him to turn the wrap passes, the skip passes over the top into more of a regular thing. We've seen the flashes. Now they have to become close to the top of your priority list. Without that, you need someone in the backcourt next to him or on the wing. I'm looking at a 2-3 mostly, but don't really care about positional labels in that sense. But somebody who you put the ball in their hands, whether that's as the primary initiator or as the guy attacking in a 4-on-3 because Joel or Maxey got doubled, can read the defense well enough to either get to their spot, hit a pull-up jumper, get to the rim, or find the advantage on the weak side, wherever the ball needs to go. So it's a long way of saying they need a max player who is like a true max player. It's not a guy who's a max in contract only that's got a lot of flaws.
Do you have anyone in mind when you say max in contract only?
I mean, there was a guy who was paid
a guy?
Quite a bit of money. Tobias wasn't at the max though, right?
He was just short, but it was there was a distinction without a difference. Yeah. He was right there.
He was set 179, basically the max. Yeah.
So the functionally no different, but it's so a lot of that to say a guy who can play, make, defend, shoot. Dribble.
It's the prototypical wing that you talk about, the 27-year-old Paul George that we saw playing in Indiana against the Cleveland Cavaliers, where he burst onto the scene and everybody was just like, oh, okay. And that was that guy. And when you look at those, let's say the shooting guards that we all would talk about when we really would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the past, you would have those certain players where Joe Dumars was 6'3", and he was a smaller guy. And you look at him and say, all right, he's a smaller guy, but he's playing next to another elite guy like Isaiah Thomas in the backcourt. They had a bigger lineup, so that worked. Mitch Richmond was the prototypical 6'5", right there, stocky shooting guard. Then you go to some others that you can just run off, J.R. Ryder, shooting guard. And all these names that we can just simply go through naming all of these shooting guards that they have. And then you go to the small forward position where you start to look at 6'7", 6'8", a little bit, maybe 6'9",
which is more where the league has gone now. And it's a lot more prioritizing those types of guys.
Yeah, so with the prototypical 2 to 3 type of player, which we just now categorize as a wing, that can shoot the basketball, can defend, can put the ball on the floor. As much as we talk about shot creation from Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey on the pass, Joel Embiid will shot create for himself because he's that good. He can do that. The same thing for Tyrese Maxey. The third one is the same. It doesn't have to be elite, but it has to be good enough where you know that they can get to their spot, get their shot off against a tough defense and still hit maybe a tough shot, but also make it advantageous for themselves and maybe their teammates where you can also find some really good looks for them as well. So those are the attributes that we really look at that many of these guys possess. But as we talked about, a lot of these players that we talk about are imperfect because we can pick at so many different things from Paul George to Jimmy Butler to Brandon Ingram to even Alex Caruso. As much as we like, there are things that we can all pick apart. And if we had the ideal 2K put together this type of creative player that Kyle mentioned at the very top, it's that guy somewhere between 6'5" to 6'8" that can do a number of things on the floor that makes life easier for both Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid on both sides of the floor. And the one thing that this player may be able to do, it not so much when we talk about Brandon Ingram, but when we were discussing Jimmy Butler and Paul George at the very beginning of the offseason, it really means that you're going to elevate yourself to the top of the defensive side with Joel Embiid, because that's not Maxey's strong suit as of right now. As much as he has improved, you still need somebody that can come in and play much better in that role defensively to take some of that pressure off of Tyrese Maxey, where it might shine a little bit brighter and we can highlight some of his defensive things that we're seeing positively from him because of who he's out there on the floor with that length, with that size right there for them at that wing position. So that prototypical wing that if the lineup is big enough where you're talking 6'6", all the way from 2 to 4, where you're taking away Embiid and Maxey because we already know what they are, you're really looking at something that might be pretty good, as much as we talk about the length and the size of the players around those two. So if that player can possess those things that we just laid out, there'll be some really good conversations of who that player might be.
Just want to point out, first of all, that was 2 Joe Dumars references in 1 week on PHLY. That has to be a record.
Hall of Famer, baby.
Hall of Famer, and also the dual phone.
King of the two phones. Shout out Mint Mobile.
And also talking about having a roster full of 6'8" guys who can dribble and shoot, and then going back to having lineups with Maxey and Lowry and Campaign all on the floor at the same time. Boy, they got some work to do. They got some work to do.
We did ask Nick Nurse to get a little creative. It just didn't need to be that, where he had to go all small.
But the fact that he was bringing in Lowry and Campaign shows you, like, it's easy to be like, well, they need a wing, and it's got to be a wing guy who's 6'8", who does this, and that. But shows you why I feel like ball handling and playmaking get overlooked as needs for this team, because look, Tyrese took a big step forward, and now, all right, they have the star guard and they already have the star center. And so you don't need as much of the Maxey's put to rest. Like, he's the guard of the future, all that. And that I 100% agree with. But you can see, because of whatever limitations he still has as a lead guy, he needs some help there. And some of that is because of Joel's own deficiencies, right? Like, when you're building a team around a center, if that center is not like the greatest dribbling center ever, or they're not a complete, Joel is not a play finisher in the traditional sense of a center, right? Like, you refer to a center as a play finisher. Normally that means he's a pick and roll big. He's setting a screen for the guard. He's going to catch it deep. It's like a 1-2 drop step. There are not a lot of guys at Joel's size who have operated from the elbows, right? It's like him, Dirk,
Jokic,
KG, Jokic,
Patrick Ewing a little bit.
But it's not a long list of guys, right? Like, most of those guys are starting their offense much closer to the basket, and they haven't had as big of a burden having to play make. So they do need somebody who can bridge that gap, right? Who can make up for the deficiencies of the other two guys that are there.
Yes.
And that's why you've seen someone like Lowry, even at age 38, step in and make a difference for the team. Not because he's still, capital KL Kyle Lowry that he was in Toronto, but because he still has the brain of a point guard. He still has the game instincts that made him such an effective player, even while playing with high volume guys like Kawhi, because he, in an advantage situation, he's got that 4-on-3. He's going to quickly explode through space, beat the closeout, find the little drop-off pass, wherever the advantage is. If it's in transition as well, I think transition play is a big thing, because with Joel and Tyrese at kind of the opposite ends of the pace spectrum, it would be good for Tyrese specifically to have the other guy as a partner to run the floor with, right? Whether that's, and so let's just use Paul George as an example.
Yep.
At least Paul George, he might not be the vertical athlete anymore, but if Tyrese is the driver, the guy going down the middle of the floor, Paul is a credible spacer. Like, he gets to a spot and a team has to pay attention to him. But I do think, like, the Campaign, the Kyle Lowry piece is that you just need passers. You have to have guys who can make good decisions and act on what happens around them as Joel and Tyrese draw double teams.
Yeah, Stan from Drexel Hill on Twitter. We incorporate a little tweet here.
Look at that.
Yeah, Stan says defense, playmaking ability, and shooting. of course, for that particular player that we're talking about with this one. So I do have another question off of that, because as we talk about with Joel and Tyrese and how it all makes sense for them, I do want to ask something more along the lines of the Tyrese Maxey side of things to make life easier with him. We'll do that certainly as we get things going, continue to get things going here on this Friday that we'll hope everybody's having a good one. And hey, it is Father's Day weekend. Did you forget? Like, damn, it's Father's Day. I
Sure
forgot.
hope not.
Let me go and get something really, really fast. Well, hey, my folks at Manscaped, they've got you covered. You can act fast. It's still available. If you blink and you say, oh, it's Father's Day already. We've been telling you about this for a while now. And if you have forgotten and you're looking for a nice gift for dad, today's the episode that is brought to you by Manscaped. Of course, the leaders in below the waist grooming. Maybe your pops has needed some change since the 70s with, some facial hair, things of that nature, and you want to go to Manscaped, some other things that he may have some razors, some clippers for. Well, if that's the case, go to our friends at Manscaped. They have crafted the total package for this special day, whether it's for boys downstairs, his beard, or even the best pair of underwear out there. Manscaped has his bases covered. Head over to manscaped.com and get 20% off plus free shipping with code PHLY from daddy to zaddy. Trust Manscaped. Kyle hasn't heard that one in a while. You missed it.
Hey, it's Father's Day weekend. It's
Father's
Zaddy's Day weekend.
Let's have that. Remember that old beard trimmer that dad's been using since you were a kid, right? Time to throw that thing away. It's time for an upgrade. Introducing the face shaver that's a must-have for the smooth finish. Daddy loves the Manscaped Handyman. Yes, powerful and compact, this face shaver isn't just for home use. It's perfect for quick touch-ups on the go. Its precision blades ensure a clean shave every time, making it an essential tool for any dad's grooming routine. And while you're grooming, the grooming tools, don't forget about the face shaver now that you can get there as well. Also, the boxes we told you about, the underwear drawer needs to be changed. Got you covered there, Dad. The set of underwear you got for Christmas a decade ago most definitely needs that change. Thankfully, Manscaped's Boxers 2.0 are here to help. So get 20% off plus free shipping with the code PHLY at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code PHLY. Never forget where you came from, if you know what I mean. Happy Father's Day from Manscaped.
All right, that one's a little too far.
We also want to make sure we tell you about Sleep Healthy PA. At Sleep Healthy PA, they are committed to helping Philadelphia residents stop the snore and find solutions for sleep apnea that will allow you to rest well and improve your health. What causes sleep apnea? There is a choke point in the throat that causes snoring. Dr. Andrew Cohen, a board certified in dental sleep medicine, and his staff will work one-on-one with you to provide first-class care that meets your needs. Many physicians aren't equipped to provide many options outside of CPAP machines. More than anything, he just wants to see his patients healthy. Tired of CPAP machines that are cumbersome? Is your significant other tired of it too? Sidebar, 50% of divorces cite snoring as a main issue. Sleep Healthy PA is based in Jenkintown. He's worked for years to educate dentists across the country on his personal approach to helping those with sleep apnea. His team is committed to stopping the snore. Tell him PHLY sent you, and you receive 15% off your initial workup. Here's a quick rundown of the process. There's a 2-hour initial exam split into 2 sessions. One is for information gathering, including medical history and imaging. The other to review results and share recommendations. If you are experiencing sleep apnea and are looking for a custom solution to stop the snore, reach out to Dr. Andrew Cohen at sleephealthypa.com or call 215-337-2501. Tell him PHLY sent you.
All right, I saw somebody mention in the chat also Nikhil Alexander Walker, excuse me. And he does have one more year left on his contract with the Minnesota Timberwolves. So it's a decent contract, $4 million. I don't know that they're looking to move him. He is a part of their rotation. Not saying that they wouldn't, but he does have 1 year left on his deal when talking about Nikhil Alexander Walker. What is he, 6'5", 6'4", 6'5"? Decent size as a guard.
He's Shea's cousin, right?
Yeah.
I knew they're related in some way.
You just flipped the last name thing. Alexander Walker.
The hyphen names, man.
Yeah. So for the Tyrese Maxey piece, when we talk about this particular player, I wanted to ask you, Kyle, to start off. You mentioned what benefits Joel the most in a particular type of player. So what type of player would benefit Tyrese Maxey the most as sort of a running mate when we're talking non-big man to go along with him in this player?
Well, first, it's somebody who can provide him with some form of defensive cover. You know, as much as I think Tyrese made real strides, there were a couple of games last year where that one Boston game, I was blown away by how many turnovers he created or good possessions he put together against Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, guys who in theory he should get punked by, and frankly has in the past. Like, there have been plenty of games against Boston where they have hunted him mercilessly, as they do against a lot of teams. So he has gotten better. I just think when push comes to shove and you get to the playoffs and you got to beat these teams that have the jumbo wing-sized playmakers or even like big guards, you don't want Tyrese to have to defend one of those guys for long stretches of the game. You want someone who can take that responsibility away from him, someone who is going to play more of a secondary role on offense, so you don't have to worry as much about the problem with Tyrese having to defend like the other teams. If a point guard is the best player or a 6'5" guard who can play make is the other team's best player, and Maxey has to deal with that because, you know, Kyle Lowry is his backcourt partner. That's a problem, right? And the Sixers ended up in a position last year, and this is not to cast aspersions at Kelly Oubre, but they essentially had to choose last year. Okay, Kelly is one of our better, maybe even our best wing defender, but he also shot low 30s from three. And so the choice in front of them was, do we put a guy on the floor who gives us a chance to slow down Jalen Brunson and then have to deal with the fact that teams are going to dare him to shoot? Or do we play the quote unquote skill lineup and leave ourselves exposed against a guy like Brunson and other guards and players of that caliber because we don't have a good option to defend him? And more than anything, this certainly applies to the backcourt partner, but it's just the roster in general. They have to get away from the one side of the ball players. There need to be, it's part of why you want a third star, because the idea is you have that guy on the floor for, let's say, 36 to 38 minutes. In the playoffs, it'll get to 40 plus. But 36 to 38 minutes of another guy that you trust unequivocally on both ends of the floor. You have that in Joel. Tyrese is still more of a 1.5 type player. But if you get a third guy in here that's a true two-way player and is able to take on the tough assignments, is a reliable floor spacer, and is just giving you one more person that you can blindly trust, so that when you get into, I'm making the starting lineup, I'm figuring out the rotations, and I'm figuring out closing lineups as Nick Nurse, it's not a debate in your head. It's just like, these three guys are there. That gives us a stable base and core. And then the other two can be, ideally, you just have five guys that, all right, we go to these guys at any time. But you also can play the hot hand. Like, hey, this guy's got to roll in tonight. And if it is an offense first guy, I don't feel as bad about, like if it's Buddy Hield, for example. And Buddy, I think, was better defensively than we expected, at least played harder than we expected there. But if Buddy Hield or a Buddy Hield type is hot in the fourth quarter, if you have that extra defensive guy on the floor who brings offensive value, you don't have to second guess, well, what happens to our defense if Buddy Hield comes in, because you have a stronger base to build from. And that's why I'm just going to be banging the drum. It's got to be a two-way guy. It's got to be someone who has not necessarily like the best skill set at every level and on both sides of the floor, but does everything well enough that you can't pick on them on one side of the floor or the other.
Yeah. When you're saying that, like the guy that comes to mind, and this is why what some of the shows we did earlier in the offseason are tough, but like Prime Clay. You're not going to run offense through him per se. He's not a great passer and a creator like that, but he's good enough as a connective piece, and he has so much gravity off ball that he creates opportunities even if the ball
just by
isn't
running
necessarily
around
in his
or
hands.
standing
Right.
somewhere.
So he's creating opportunities that way. He's making the connective passes when they come to him. He's not holding on to the ball too long. The ball's moving and flowing, and the gravity is so elite. He's credible two-way. In fact, he was really good Very, very good defensively for parts of his career before the injuries. He is sort of like, like I said, realistically, you're not going to get everything. Like, you're not going to walk out of here with prime LeBron.
He'd be a good fit.
It would be a good fit, but like that's not
controversial
realistic.
Opinion.
If you're going to have to give up something, the one thing I would give up, because Maxey and Embiid's two main games are going to be so predominant in the Sixers offense, pure shot creation is a one, and that doesn't mean passing. You can't give away passing and decision making, but pure shot creation is like the one skill that I would give up as long as they are a good enough connected passer and as long as they have enough gravity, like I said, to create opportunities, create shots, create space for others. Prime Clay is sort of like not that it's realistic, but that is like the perfect archetype.
What, you mean you can't just go in a lab and create prime Klay Thompson, who's also a free agent this summer?
You could bring Stauskas back. I'm just bringing it up again.
Enough with the Stauskas. Once was funny. Twice it's just beating the dead horse.
No, that would be the ideal guy. But yeah, I mean, and look, Walker Alexander is a decent player. And
the shots improved, which is huge for him.
Big time. I mean, leaving New Orleans, going to Utah, and then finding a home now in Minnesota. Maybe he will have that opportunity. I don't know that that's going to be here, but maybe he will have that opportunity. But yeah, it's having somebody next to Maxey that you can just count on every single night. And the Lowry, look, the Melton part was good for what it was. When we always talked about it, though, the one thing that I would always lean on is I think he's best as a sixth man. Plays really well, can fit in a lot of different lineups. Six man, come in, play 20, 25, 30 minutes, knock down some shots. Extra ball handlers certainly can defend, but you also want somebody with some more size. And you even saw it a little bit when you had Kelly Oubre out there in that lineup with that 6'6" frame that he has with some length, putting that pressure on the defense that did take a lot away from Maxey and having to worry about it with Kyle Lowry also on the floor. Nick Batum out there as well, where it made life easier for Tyrese Maxey. And that's not to say that he's not going to improve, but if you're putting together that lineup and you're putting those guys that can defend 2 through 4, 1 through 4, somewhere along those lines, and the way things go with so much switching and hunting the certain type of players, that would make life so much easier for Tyrese Maxey. And all you're asking for him to do is compete if he does get caught on a certain situation, that he can do that and survive, knowing that he has the others around him, plus the big fella on the back end to clean up things at the rim and the paint, should that player get to that spot. So if it's that 6'6" Klay Thompson type with the shooting on the offensive end, doesn't put the ball on the floor that much, that's okay, because he, again, is one of the greatest of all time in doing that. That would be fantastic. But if we're looking at it right now for what it's available, and ironically enough, Klay Thompson is available. It's just not the 27 in his prime, and knocking the shots down.
Multiple devastating injuries later, mid-30s.
Not that same type of Klay Thompson that they have, and that would be great. People keep bringing up Malik Monk, and I see you're commenting on it, but it's tough with the Malik Monk thing because we're, again, going with the size. I was going to
shout out, so Kevin Washington in the chat today has been banging the drum for Malik Monk
tough.
Today. And I don't want to – I like Malik Monk a decent amount. I think last year, the biggest jump for him over the last few years, but especially last season, has been the playmaking, because he came out of school and was essentially a non-passer, complete black hole player, that the whole reason that he was in consideration to be drafted was scoring and shooting. He has not been as good of a shooter in efficiency as you would like, but he's definitely when he's in the game, he will get shots up. I would not worry about him in terms of the shot volume if he's playing off of Maxey and Embiid. What we're talking about right now, though, is exactly why I don't like Monk with the Sixers, and that's the defensive end of the floor. He is, I believe, 6'3", so he honestly fits more of the third Joe Dumars reference now, right. But he's in the old Joe Dumars type of
without the defense.
But also the thing with Joe Dumars is he played on a team with a bunch of enforcer types, and look, he was a great player in his own right, but he's playing with a bunch of bullies on his team, and he's playing in a league where it's an interior based league more than anything, right? So you could get away with a small backcourt back in those days because your power forward was a guy who was going to fucking clothesline people if they came the wrong way.
And that's not even an exaggeration.
That's literally was happening in those games for the Bad Boys Pistons. So the issue with him and Tyrese is that then you fall back into that, all right, everybody else has to be a high-level defender, because I think those guys are starting at a complete deficit. And Derek has really been the biggest proponent of this on the show this offseason. But if your point of attack defense is that bad and they're able to get through you as quickly and as easily as they would with Maxey and Monk as the two guard defenders,
Yeah, it's untenable.
Joel is just going to be put in so many bad positions, and those rebounding problems that we saw manifest against the Knicks, I think, will be even more frequent with those two on the floor together.
And even ignore the rebounding problems and what it does to Joel, but like just look at the driving kick opportunities it creates. Like, look at what you're looking at in the finals right now. It's just pick on Luka, kick it out to three. Pick on Luka. Even if Joel Embiid can close down the lane, those kickouts are still going to be there because your point of attack defense is horrendous. And I think the Sixers' point of attack defense would be horrendous and untenable and unsustainable.
But it's why when I've brought up Monk on the show, I keep hammering that I think he'd be a great fit in Orlando, where they have the infrastructure. Their problems are not on defense. They have 2, 3, 4 guys on the floor at a time who are elite or potentially elite switch defenders, and they're not trying to funnel everything toward one guy at the rim, a 7-foot center. And their need is creation and shooting and spacing, and they can live with the deficiencies that Monk has. So I think he's going to get offered a bag by a team like Orlando. I think he's going to be a good fit there. I don't think, if you're looking for like the third guy here, that he makes sense. If Malik Monk was available for cheaper and you could bring him here as a sixth man to support whoever the two foundation building block players in Maxey and Embiid and a real wing that they bring in, and if he's somehow available for 6-man money, I'd sign on the dotted line tomorrow. I think he's awesome in that role.
Well,
and I think he's somebody who could what's up?
That would be tampering. You can't sign on the dotted line tomorrow. Come on, Kyle. You got to know the rules.
Well,
be better.
I'm not signing anybody. So but I think he will absolutely, on the right team, swing playoff games in that type of role. I just don't think it can be here.
Yep, and before you say that it's another small guard in Orlando, that small guard is an all-NBA defensive player. So that kind of eliminates that conversation right there. And Tyrese Maxey is in the chat. He says, hey, guys, I don't think my defense is that bad, with a bunch of
Tyrese, there's been emojis. A bit of progress. I'll give you credit. It's been more consistent, and some of it's physical maturity, right?
Better.
Like some of it, he has gotten bigger and stronger as the years have gone by. So that's going to help him. But it is what it is. Like I don't want him to have to be a high-level defender, because that means he's got to exert way more energy on that end of the floor than, I'd say, the bulk of high-level guards.
Yeah, I agree. I think Malik Monk would be the quintessential, like, oh, look, we made a splashy signing now, but 2 years later, this doesn't really work. How do we not lose too much value when we trade and move off of it?
Yep.
And I don't think it's happening.
I don't think so either.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the suggestion has been they're not really.
It would, if they end up signing Malik Monk, then they have fooled everyone. Yes.
I'd be pretty shocked. Put it that way.
He might need some sunglasses where he's going.
Listen, he might be on those beaches of Orlando. Malik Monk hanging out at Disney World with Mickey and Donald and the whole gang. And if Malik Monk is there, or if you're there enjoying your summer vacation, I need you guys to grab a pair of Shady Rays to get ready for the season with quality shades that are built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. They are an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product with durable frames and crystal clear optics, which I can speak to myself. Not only do I wear them off the set, you guys see me doing ad reads and segments with the sunglasses on it here. Mm-hmm. And with the bright lights that we have on us during the show, I can see nice and clear. I can see producer Bree in the background, and I can invoke comparisons to famous actors for roles that we won't mention here. But if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, you don't have to sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. And if you don't love your shades, you can exchange them for a new pair or return them worry-free within 30 days. That's a whole month, guys. You get a chance to give them a test drive, take them out, see how you feel in them, see how they feel on your face. no risk when you shop with Shady Rays. And so exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out the best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. And of course, as the lead beverage officer of PHLY,
Yes,
I'm back to talk to you about another one of our regular friends here. A friend that I spent some time with yesterday down at the beach, had a nice relaxing time. When you're trying to get into that chill mindset, you're moving past the day-to-day annoyances, you always know you can choose chill and then reach for an ice cold Coors Light, which you know you're getting ice cold when the mountains turn blue on the bottles and cans, right as they hit that perfect temperature. When I take a day off to get away from these two bozos to my left, maybe one bozo, I don't know. I got to make
I have
fun
no
of
idea
Derek
who
and
he's talking about.
Devon's the nice one, so I got to be nice to the nice guy and make sure it's returned to me, I suppose. But when I go down to the beach and I want to make sure that I know my beers are cold, Coors Light is always reliable in that way. When I'm getting a little bit annoyed at this time of year, beach crowds start picking up. Some people not really good with personal space, right? They say, hey, my chair, my blanket's going to be a little closer than you'd like. There's acres of beach here, but I'm going to plop down right next to you. And when I get annoyed at that, I know I can always choose chill, take a step back, and then enjoy a cold layered, cold filtered, cold packaged Coors Light and get some mountain cold refreshment in my life. When you choose to rise above it all, choose chill, choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Can also tell you real fast where to get it, some Coors Light. June 26th, Garage Fishtown, Garage North in Fishtown, as we hang out with you for round 1 on Wednesday night, June 26th, live for the NBA draft. It should be a good time. Beginning at 8 o'clock, but we'll start things at 7:30 where you get an opportunity to chat with us before things get going. Maybe pick our brains a bit. Rich will be there, right, for this one, as we have a 4-man crew on that one. He better be there for that one. So if you're not familiar, the NBA did change where it's Wednesday round 1. Thursday is going to be round 2, and that's going to be 4 p.m. in the afternoon. But for this particular piece of round 1, we will be at Garage North in Fishtown again, and that is presented by our friends from Coors Light.
Choose and chill, baby.
Choose and chill. And will the Sixers have you chilling that night with the moves that they make, whether it's taking a player at 16, trading that pick at 16 and getting something back? Sixers memorabilia will be there as well. We'll give away some of that, some PHLY gear all night long. You do need to RSVP for your free ticket to enter to win great prizes. So enjoy the meet and greet with us. $5 Coors Light Pounders, $5 Coors Banquets all night. RSVP
beer,
now.
baby.
Now. And if you want to know more about those particular players that we may be discussing that night, go to allphly.com to read the stories that these guys are putting together. Already we have one for Devin Carter up from Kyle Neubeck, but you must be a diehard to read that piece. So go again, sign up for the diehard program. See what we're doing on that Wednesday. You're not doing anything on that Wednesday night, 8 o'clock at night. Might as well come kick it with us. Come on. Just come kick it with us as we get ready for round 1. Sixers haven't drafted it. When was the last time they drafted a player? Was it? Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, Jaden Springer, first round? Was it Springer?
Why am I don't know why that just threw me for such a loop. That's something I should just know off the top of my head.
I think they've gone 2 years in a row with that one, right?
Yeah, because the one that they did trade was for DeAnthony Melton.
Was David Roddy.
Yeah. So technically, Springer, NBA champion, about to be Springer.
Throwing red meat to Vince.
People just want to get mad about anything, which I get it. It's the Sixers are frustrating, but also Jaden Springer has had a 0.00% impact.
So I was talking about Drew winning,
series.
And of course, like Derek was saying, you're happy for Drew, for winning his second title because he was a good guy when he was here, all that good stuff. He's a great guy. And I mentioned Emil Jefferson, Philadelphia native, didn't have a long NBA playing career, but he's gonna have a ring as a player development coach on the staff, and that's pretty decent. And then we were don't forget about Jaden Springer in the chat. Like, well, technically, yeah, but cool. Good
if you
for
want to
him.
get mad about, be mad about Isaiah Joe, who they cut and became like a real
player,
actual contributor to a team that took a chance on him. A guy who's sitting on the end of the bench waving a fucking towel. I just
And again,
like maybe eventually he becomes a good player. Like, great, fine, but I just do not care right now.
Well,
I don't.
MDB says whatever Springer is or isn't, he was dispatched for nothing, which is not ideal.
Also, there's still some assistant coaches, former Sixers assistant coaches on that staff, including Tyler Lashbrook, who spent a good chunk of time here. So good for them.
Sam Cassell.
Happy for them, even though fuck Boston.
Martian Lynch says Sam Cassell chose wisely. Well, he left with Doc.
I would love to choose chill with Sam Cassell. I feel like that'd be a good time.
Like
Although I mean, I have no idea if he's even a Brewski fan, so I don't know.
He's a choose chill guy. Yes, I do know that. Yeah,
right.
Funny guy, Sam Cassell.
That he is too. Yeah, he's a cool guy though. When you get,
I mean, just a super nice.
Yeah.
He's like what he seems like when he played and was on all those teams.
Because he was a pain in the ass.
But like an endearing pain in the ass, right? Like doing the big balls dance.
Endearing
and all that
because
stuff.
the Sixers came out ahead in a bunch of those matchups.
But I'm not like set aside the Sixers part. He just always was one of those guys that like there are guys who were trolls and trash talkers and all that, and he was absolutely one of them. Yeah. But it was never like the venomous like KG
that's fair.
type
That's
of.
fair.
So I think he was more of he still fits in that kind of friendly troll box. And so I always loved him as a role player. And then you meet him as a coach, and obviously he's much older now, and was about exactly what I expected. So he was a delightful person.
Was he the first one with that? I was thinking about this with the Phillies. Was he the first one with that dance, or did he copy it from somewhere?
He was the first one.
He's the
first
one who
one
it's
I knew
associated
about.
with. I don't know if he was actually, because look, that could have been something he picked up from any college player or high school.
But like, was there a prominent person who made that dance?
I think it was him.
Public.
It was definitely him.
At least publicly, like Kyle said, publicly that's all him.
Because I think some people still refer to it as like the Sam Cassell big balls dance.
But you're still not allowed to do that in the NBA.
It's banned as far as.
I'm surprised they let that go in baseball.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're not going to do anything in game, so that would have to be something that they outlaw right away and just find guys for it.
Let people have fun. There's way too much fun police around.
I agree, but it's tough
when
when
you
have to explain it to kids.
Eric?
Right? It's tough when you have to explain it to the kids of what does that dance mean, and you can't do that in your little league game, stuff like that. So but Sam Cassell was always.
While
fun.
we're on the subject, do you know? I don't remember if this came up on the show before.
Oh.
Do you know what the Fab Five used to break their huddles with? What they would say back in the day?
I know this.
It's a 4-word phrase. It's referring to a song.
I just want to correct myself. Slade brought it up in the chat, but you have no marbles from Major League. It's sort of related, at least.
Okay. But wasn't that after? If I look at Major League, because I remember it happening.
We're really going down.
Yeah, but.
What did the Fab Five say?
And that was Major League 2, right? That was the second one.
I'm not Major League's a great movie, but I haven't watched it.
I've watched it a few times.
Yeah,
there aren't that many movies from the early '90s I can quote pretty well, but I've watched that.
That was
one
94.
Once or twice. Yeah. Okay.
Number 2 was 94. First one was 89. What was the? I can't remember.
Okay, hands in, fellas. Put hands in. We're gonna break the huddle.
Breaking the huddle.
Let your nuts hang.
Yes.
That's what the Fab Five used to break their huddles.
Yes, that's what they did. Yeah.
Shout out to Manscaped.
Speaking of Sam Cassell, Manscaped.
That should be how we end Manscaped.
All right. Speaking of Sam Cassell, Manscaped, and Major League 2, for that matter, Doc Rivers is trying to do that right now. We talked about it yesterday,
right?
We briefly touched on it at the end of the show. We talked about it briefly at the end of the show yesterday, but you're here. Some people were asking for your opinion yesterday. Oh, good day for Kyle to be off because we need a rant on Doc Rivers. Well, Derek did provide a rant, and it was fun.
I'm sure Derek was as irritated as I am.
It was fun.
There aren't that many things that get me worked up in a manner that gets me like where I resemble Kyle, but Doc Rivers is one of those topics.
I was going to say, in terms of demeanor, you and I are on pretty far ends of either spectrum. I mean, to just add on to what has already been said, what a fucking preposterous loser baby excuse maker, right? Like, talk about a guy who has had the best opportunities of any coach, arguably over the last 15 years, right? Certainly gives
He's
him,
really good at picking his job.
I was going to say, give him his credit for constantly convincing these teams with future Hall of Famers and present day all-star, all-NBA talent to hire him and be the Sherpa that will lead them to the top of the mountain, despite the fact that he only got there once and just barely escaped a 7-game blow-for-blow series with a shitty Hawks team in round 1 with the most loaded team in the Eastern Conference that year to do it.
That Hawks team will work that Celtics squad every playoffs.
But to come here, and I do think there's a little bit of truth to what he's saying,
not
in the playoffs.
A little bit.
Because I do think at this point, the distrust has built up in the fan base where
you miss
now
one shot and people
lose.
are on edge.
Or like when they came out in game 6 and the Knicks were waxing them to start that game, you could just feel the energy in the building turning like, oh my God, these guys again, blah, blah, blah. But if it was that hard to play there, as Derek pointed out, they've had an incredible record there over the years, but they also wouldn't be able to do things like turn around that game 6 against New York and make it so it was that came down to essentially the final 5 minutes of the game, the final minute of the game for that matter. Campaign swung the whole game. He comes into the game. He's not listening to anybody bitching in the stands. And the second that they sensed there was even a little bit of a run coming, a little bit of momentum, they're down 15, 18 points, and people are going absolutely berserk on that. So I don't want to hear it, dude. There are plenty of arenas and markets around the league where you have to beg people to go to games. Like the Hawks with Trae Young, even when they're good, it's like you're barely getting people to show up to these games. And there are a lot of places like that around the NBA. Not everywhere is New York. It's not always a hot ticket like the Lakers. The Heat have been really good for years and years, and their fans are just, they are what they are. They show up late, and then I have to hear, whenever you point it out, all the Heat fans are like, oh, you don't have to deal with Miami traffic.
Oh,
and it's
there's
like,
stuff to do in
there's no
Miami.
fucking traffic in places like LA and New York and all these other places that sell out and are showing up on time. All the fans are there. So there are plenty of markets where they're dying to have the problems that Philadelphia has, which is to say they have fans with high expectations that haven't been met, and they're demanding more. That's whether you're an executive, a coach, a player, that to me is where you should want to be always, is somewhere where when you win, Nick Foles had like one good month and is immortal in this city.
To be fair, that
all
one
it
good
takes.
month
Well,
did
it's
lead
one of
to
the best months in NFL playoffs. But all I'm saying is like he had a few weeks where he was absolutely lights out.
You got a statue.
And now that guy has a fucking statue and will never pay for a meal or a drink in this town again. That is what you get. That's the privilege of playing in a place like this. They will remember you forever. And that's how winners think, not fucking stinky losers like that guy.
And to your point, like I think there is some criticisms of Philly fans historically. I think that's mellowed out over the years. And specifically
100%.
for the Sixers, I think Sixers crowds are generally very good. There is some tension in the playoffs because we've seen this
But
movie
that's
before.
everywhere.
That's going to be everywhere with unmet expectations, and that where there's a track record of coming up. I don't want to say coming up. Yeah, coming up short. That's fair. They've come up short of their regular season performance in the playoffs. Anywhere you do that, especially on the East Coast, but really just about anywhere, is going to have that sort of same tension in the crowd. The only time I've ever really gotten on Sixers fans is when they boo shooting. Like Robert Covington will come out and miss 3 threes, and they'll boo like he's trying to miss 3 threes or he's not focused enough. And I think there's still a struggle to accept the reality of shooting variance in the NBA, especially in Philadelphia, but I think probably across the league as well. Outside of that, we give standing ovations to Markelle Fultz. Like I think there's been a very supportive atmosphere.
TJ McConnell
around.
became a folk hero for just playing hard.
Yeah. So I think it's just and most of all, Doc is just the wrong messenger.
Yes.
Stop look. I said this yesterday, so I'm not going to go too deep on it. Stop looking for excuses. Stop looking for reasons. Just accept failures, do better, and shut up. Just shut up. That's really
for him. If they didn't lose 3 games in that series against the Hawks, he wouldn't have this to say. If they didn't lose Game 6 against Boston, he wouldn't have this to say. Had he won those, his experience might be a little bit different because of those situations that he was the coach for those spots there. So, I mean,
he just really can't help himself, right? Like, what is it? It's middle of June. The NBA Finals are on, and this guy has to swerve into.
He should be talking about the Bucks. That's what he should be talking about. The Bucks. The Bucks in the finals.
Maybe you should stab another coach in the back to get a different
finals.
job. I don't know.
And
he
also
look like this one's worked out.
He also
so far.
shared that Damian Lillard said
he
that
wouldn't
he
wish
wasn't
that
in shape
position on anyone.
So since he wasn't in shape,
Remember,
he threw his point guard under the bus.
They had to go into elevation. They had to start off on the road. Wouldn't wish that situation on anyone.
And he does. There are times when I'm like, all right, people are overly scrutinizing what he's saying just because he's made so many excuses that he can say something that's true. And people are like, oh, fucking Doc Rivers, that kind of thing. And like, I'm doing a little bit of that here. But again, like, just for the next year, just do the Andy Reid, I got to do a better job. And just see what happens. It can't hurt. It can't be worse than what you've done so far.
Well, there's that. That's why Lawrence Fishburne is playing a character that's ripping
Larry
Fishburne for all those guys, man, on that team. Finals tonight, Game 4. Celtics going for a sweep. Derek, did they close it out?
I keep saying no. Dallas is going to get a game, and it never happens. So I'm going to say yes. The Celtics close.
Every game they've gotten off to a decent enough start, and Boston comes.
And
back.
I'm at the point where I just kind of want it to end, just because then we can get a little more slop here in these updates. So at this point, I'm rooting for it. It's not going to be a good series. A gentleman's sweep doesn't do anything for me. Let's get the offseason going.
What do you think?
I was firmly in the Dallas is winning Game 3 and then they'll lose tonight camp. So yeah, unless Scott Foster goes full enter Sandman mode, which if you guys know the tweet video that I'm referring to, shout out to you. It's one of my favorite videos on the internet. Unless he single-handedly throws himself in front of the Celtics freight train, I just don't really see. Because here's the thing that I think also happened last game. I think the mental toll of losing that specific game is going to be pretty significant, right? To be down 3-0, Luka fouls out, and the narrative about the series has now become, yes, that Boston is really good, but it's also like, man, Luka's such a crybaby, and look at what he's doing, and blah, blah, blah. And so they are just in such a difficult position to try to get everyone to simply believe that they have a chance to win the series. Nobody has come out of an 0-3 hole ever, let alone in the NBA Finals. So that's the first thing. Is like, I think the first 8 to 10 minutes will be very telling. If Dallas comes out and looks ready to put up a fight, then I think they'll probably steal one, because Boston is not going to go all out for a game just to end the series now, when you could just rest our guys in the fourth quarter if it gets tough, and then you go win at home in Game 5.
Problem is they've started the games off pretty well.
Yeah,
and
so
then they fade.
If Boston closes this out tonight, they would become the first team in NBA history to sweep both the conference finals and the NBA finals.
It's never happened.
Nope.
Wow.
5-0 is the closest.
Yeah, because that was the Sixers lost the one to Milwaukee, and then Iverson returned the favor to the Lakers.
As much as I want this to be over, I don't need Boston setting history, so maybe I am. Mavs tonight. Going Dallas. I don't need that.
Celtics sweep.
I don't need that.
Done. It's over with. Maybe they get Kristaps back tonight too to close it out.
I feel like his season's probably over unless they get to like a really desperate situation. If I had to guess,
but it's over. It's done.
I also think I brought up Luka, but Luka has not really been the problem, right?
Defensively, he's been a pretty big
defensively, yes, but
game
they've
1
got
and 2, nothing from the role players. Kyrie Irving wasn't playing well, and then when he did play well in game 3, Luka was just doing weird stuff and then fouling out and complaining to the officials.
No, even in game 3 when he was really being picked on defensively, I think the Mavs were like a +8 or something when he was on the floor. So.
And when they did come back in the end, he started taking those step back threes that he's known for, but they were doing other things to score the basketball. Kind of went away from that particular offense. I think they do get this one over with, and we start the offseason after, 11:30 tonight. Babajide with a super chat, mixing this one in. In an ideal world, the Sixers will trade for Mikal Bridges and find a way to sign OG Anunoby for somewhere 4 years, $130 million. That's 2 all-defensive wings. They win it all next year.
You're not getting Mikal.
You may not be getting OG.
Probably not getting either.
So
obviously if you sign OG to a team-friendly deal, that could happen. But if he gets 40, is that even?
Well, because Mikal's at
20.
If he gets 39, it's doable.
Yeah, so I just think you're not getting him for the money that it would take to squeeze him in under the.
But I think that's the more likely of the 2 options because I don't think Bridges is like we mentioned in the show that we did on Mikal Bridges, which was a week or so ago, week and a half ago, somewhere in there. Go back, check. You can see he's the picture on one of them. It seems like Houston or some other team, but Houston specifically because they own Brooklyn's picks. That would be the clear front runner.
Yes.
There was another report out there earlier today about the Nets not trading him because they've been getting big offers and they're still turning them down.
Because your cousin's good at basketball and they don't want to give up guys that are good at basketball.
Pretty much. He's pretty decent at basketball. One more real time jumping in here late. Any rookie contracts shake loose, like Cade Cunningham.
I thought I saw or heard that that's probably a likely extension coming, right? So I don't think Cade specifically. If you're hoping that guys get moved that are still on rookie deals, I'd look more for secondary role player types that are either they've underperformed or they've been decent enough, but they're getting moved for. So an example that I've seen brought up that I like is Tari Eason in Houston, where there's probably going to be a bit of a logjam there. And if they do if let's say the Nets change their position and they end up trading Mikal and they go back to Houston and say, well, we'll take that deal or a similar deal to the one you offered. I think Tari Eason then becomes somewhat expendable, and so whether he gets sent to Brooklyn or he can be rerouted to Philly, I think he's somebody that you might be able to shake him loose. And while he's not a perfect fit here, he's young enough and certainly defensively disruptive enough that if you buy that he can turn into a reliable shooter on enough volume, then I think you just say we'll bring him in because he just, for lack of a better way to say it, he fucks shit up when he comes into games.
No, I was big on him coming out of LSU. His athleticism pops, his defensive playmaking pops. If you can turn that into a productive offensive player, I think there's a lot to work with.
All right. That'll pretty much do it for us here on this Friday. Good to hang out with everybody all week long. We appreciate it as always. Time for our roll call as we get ready to say goodbye.
Man, I'm out of practice. I wasn't even prepared for a roll call. I might be scrolling for a while. All right, everybody. Thank you, as always, for coming through. And thank you to Real Time, especially, for not calling me Charlie Brown in this shirt today, although maybe you did and I missed it. Thank you also to my girl, Winona.
Hey, Nona.
To MBD.
B.
DBF.
Just say MDB.
Say MBD.
You know what? I like to say the full name just to prove that I can recognize letters on my tiny little screen here. Thank you to Money Mar. Is that I Gavini?
I see that one.
I think that's what I said yesterday. Yeah.
What up, I Gavini?
What up? Is that
Talk about being out of practice.
Maybe that's my friend Gavin, and he's under an alias. I don't know. It could just be who knows. Thank you to Guard Mello, to Demetria Stinson, Slade, Martian Lynch, number one trash talker in the chat. Bootzilla.
Boots.
AC Philla. He of the 17,000 different Twitter names and accounts. Shout out also to Real Time once again, to Eugene Ross with the new profile pic.
Come August, we might have to have a show on what our favorite AC Phila Twitter handle has been.
There's
going to be some dark times.
Captain Hoagie, I think, is one of them, right?
Hoagie. What up, Gene? Captain Hoagie.
X-Man, Phi Chi, Rick Morris.
What up, X?
Provolone John. Who else we got in here?
Provolone.
SB Cole.
What up, SB?
Spo Babby.
Spo Babby.
I wonder if
Not
Spo
baby.
Babby
Not
wants to
baby.
be
Not
called
baby.
Spo Baby, and it's just
Baby.
it was out of character, or it was already taken, and so
Well,
they
I said
settled on Babby.
Spo Baby yesterday. Devon, correct me real quick.
Dave Dewar.
What up, Dave? Real Time says Sean Wayans looked more likely as a third player. Oh, man.
Oh no, not
That's
Sean
terrible.
Wayans.
Bad offseason.
Enemy of the show,
Bad
Sean
offseason.
Wayans.
Bad offseason.
Who was our other Babajide or Babajide?
Babajide.
Sorry, I rearranged the letters in your name,
Yeah.
so thank you for that super
What
chat
up,
as
Martian?
well. Jay Busy 47,
Did you get Martian?
He did.
Martian
did
is
get Martian. I
requesting
said-
his shout out. Okay.
the
Okay.
biggest trash talker in all of PHLY.
Jay
I
Busy.
said.
You said Jay Busy?
Yes,
What up,
Philly
Jay Busy?
007. Valhos is here. What up, Valhos?
All right. James
I think
Bond.
that's probably enough. I'm assuming Al, our guy, the 2-minute warning, was in here as well. Hypothetical
What up,
man.
Al?
Some of our regulars. I'll shout them out even if they were not
Bootzilla
here.
says, the baby, Lil Baby, Spo Baby.
A lot of babies. If you have not, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. If you hit the thumbs up button, maybe another baby will come through this show next time. Not for me, but
Not
you
me.
never know.
But happy
kind of fucking
Father's
show
Day
we
to
have
the
here?
dads out there.
That's
Know
a
where
good
you came
point.
from.
Happy Father's Day to all the dads. Winona said
Father's
happy
Day for
Father's
sure.
Day. Thank you, Winona. Appreciate that.
Thank you to super producer Bree
Thank you,
as
Bree.
well. We will be back Monday at 2:30. Enjoy your weekend, everybody.
See ya. Stay cool.
We all silly like the mayor.